Indeed, Luke. Good evening, everyone. Really great to be here for this very special evening, and particularly to have a chance to spend some time with Martin. And thanks a lot also to Dean for joining us for this event. And as you just heard from Luke, the kind of context for this is the work, the partnership that Mind has with the EFL generally, and now we're in the third season of that partnership, where we already know that we've been able to bring the kind of conversations about mental health to across the EFL clubs over the course of the last couple of years. And in those seasons, we know that we've been able to help lots more people talk about their mental health. And gosh, you know, if there's ever been a time when mental health has been important, it's been during the last 6 or 9 months, as COVID has affected so many of us. And it's affected all our mental health in many ways as well, in terms of us having to cope with things that probably none of us would ever have expected having to cope with. So that partnership with the EFL has been a really key part of helping us to continue the conversations that we all need to have about mental health. And I just want to pay particular credit to Orient. I think you've been absolutely brilliant in terms of your really thinking about this issue from the point of view of the club. And as you heard from Luke, Harry Kane's support and sponsorship for the third shirt with the Mind logo on the front means you are the only club to have the Mind logo on the front and the Mind logo on the back of your shirt. So that is hugely appreciated. And you know, we know that that's really building some strong awareness, encouraging people to talk more about mental health. But I also think that one of the reasons why you as a club have been so dynamic on this issue has been because of the man that we're here to talk to tonight, because of Martin. You know, Martin doesn't really need any introduction. I think he's a bit of a legend. He's certainly a legend in our mental health world, as somebody who's been really open about his mental health journey. But I think he's also a bit of a legend here in the club as well. So it's really a real pleasure to be able to have an hour of your time, Martin, this evening. So really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have. And perhaps we could just start by, you know, perhaps just telling us a bit about the relationship really between your career and your mental health, because like so many people, you know, life and sport and mental health are closely interlinked, aren't they? And for you, it's been a big part of your personal journey through your football career, hasn't it? So tell us a bit more about how all that's worked, and you know, the ups, but also probably some downs as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's quite weird, really, because you know, as a player, never had any signs, or you know, I look back now and sort of rack my brains and feel, was there any signs of it whilst I was playing? And the answer to that is no. And when it first affected me was in 2009, when I was managing at Cambridge, and I don't know. I just got I got what I felt like was, I felt a bit, if I describe it, as feeling a bit strange, a bit anxious about situations. And not feeling quite myself. I took 12 days off work. I was pushed, or not pushed. I was put into to see a counsellor through the LMA, and at that stage in 2009, it was just a mild medication. If I'm honest with you, some CBT. Which is cognitive behavioural therapy for people that don't know what CBT is, and it sort of went as fast as it came. And if I'm honest with you, I did my best to ignore it because I didn't understand it. I don't know where it come from. I knew that I didn't feel right, but I coped with it, and I got on with life and just continued. And it was. You know, there was a couple of things. I remember the counsellor speaking to me then about changing circumstance. I'd been at Leighton Orient 13 years, and had lost my job, along with Dean at the time was my assistant at that time, and also my dad was very ill, and he sort of put them two scenarios as part of the illness, and it seemed to make sense to me at that time. And as I say, I pretty much ignored it. But then for me, you know, in 2013, I was managing at Torquay, and I had a complete mental breakdown. It started like the first occasion where I didn't feel quite myself. I went and I see a counsellor down in Devon, but unfortunately for me this time it led into a complete mental breakdown, and 7 weeks in the Priory, and obviously had to really fight back from that situation, and I know it's really good to see Dean on here, but I can remember being in that Priory at that time, and I can remember him coming to see me a couple of times, and I remember on one occasion he come and threw my curtains open and said, "What, you living in the dark?" and said to me, "We're going for a walk," and I said to him that we can't, they won't let me. And then he went and see the nurses and signed me out to take me for a walk, and them type of things stick with people. And he was there when I needed a friend, and I know we're going to talk about that a bit later. And again, I was 7 weeks in, and I come out there fully expecting to go straight back into Torquay and manage, but that didn't happen for varying reasons. And it took me some time for that fog to clear, I suppose. But it eventually did clear. My medication was up. I suppose I'm not going to ignore the fact that during 2009 I continued to drink alcohol as a coping mechanism. If I'm totally honest, whenever my head started to spin and started to go dark, the alcohol was used. So if the truth be known, the tablets that I was taking for that 4 years I might as well not took, because it said avoid alcohol on them. And I've abstained from alcohol now for near enough, coming up for 8 years in March. And it was a battle to come back. But for me, I did, and I didn't continue at Torquay, but I continued my life. Moved on, and I started my own coaching company, and everything was going well in my own life. And then the opportunity to go back into Swindon Town come to me in 2015, which I must be honest, at that stage I thought working within professional football had passed me by, because of my mental health would always be a stain on my record. I took that Swindon job, but unfortunately for me only lasted 9 weeks when the demons returned. And that was really difficult at that stage, because I often thought alcohol was to blame for the depression. I was 4 years sober at that. 2 years sober at that stage, and it really threw me, because, as I said, I thought the alcohol took me to depression, or the depression took me to alcohol, whatever way it was, and because I wasn't drinking, the feelings and the the rawness of it all was a lot more. It was a lot more, and I found it difficult. I know that I have to look after my depression and my mental health with tablets now. As I say, I don't drink, but I feel that for me, I have to look after both of them scenarios, because I do think they touch in the middle. Well, I don't think, I know they touch in the middle. And it was a test. It was a real test for me. But I say, I have come out the back of that, and luckily for me, the opportunity to work in football has come again through being the director of football at Leighton Orient. And one of the pleasing things when I took the job and got the job was that I was pretty clear that I wanted the people that was in charge to know of my illness. When they offered me, or when they muted to me about doing the job, I said to them, "Do you realise, that I've had mental health problems before?" And they said, "Yeah, we know your back history. We're not worried." I don't know if I'm right in saying this, I think in America it's a lot more open and talked about. If I'm honest, I think and both, even though Nigel is English, but they were both very, very happy to go along with it. They said to me, "How is your mental health at the moment?" I said, "It's fine." And touch wood, since that incident in 2015 at Swindon, it's been really good. It's been, I've had no cases of the mental health. I have to treat it with respect. As I say, I don't drink alcohol. That's one bit of respect I do. I have like a ritual where the first hour of each day is for me. So I will do some reading. I will do some meditation, even though I'm naturally rubbish at it. I do try to do some meditation, but I'll give myself a bit of me time. So the first, because I can wake up, and this happens quite regularly, where I wake up, my first thought is I can't go to work. I can't, the first thought is negative. It's a negative thought that, I can't do what I've just done yesterday. But if I give myself that, sometimes if I wake up late and I rush out of the house, I don't feel the same. But if I give myself time in the morning, give myself a bit of self-love and self-worth, the day goes swimmingly. But I can still, people find it hard when I say to people, sometimes I still wake up and I get that negative thought. But I think the fact that I've gone through it before, and you've dealt with it, and you've proved to yourself that's your. I think today I understand my own thinking, my own mind, and when it starts to be negative and down with me, I can tell it to shut up and do one, and put my other head on, and things are a lot smoother that way. So it's something that when I just look back on there, I've got that written down, the dates, because my memory ain't the best. So I've done my phone and looked at the dates. I'm thinking it's 11 years ago. Touch with it, in Cambridge in 2009, and it seems even the last period of it seems a long time ago, but I know it's there. I know that it's been there, and I know that I have to respect it, and I know that I have to, as I say, I can always remember. I'll finish with this story. Really, it's medication. I can always remember when I first put on medication. All I wanted to do in my life was get off that medication, because I think it proved that I wasn't well. And today, my medication is my medication. I know I need my medication to keep me well. So I don't go to my doctor like I did previously and say to him, "Can we reduce this?" Or if he recommends me to reduce it, he's the medical person. Then I do that. But for me, it was always a slight that I was on medication, and it was always a slight, if I'm honest with you, that I had mental health problems. I used to think I was weak. I used to think that I was a person that couldn't cope. I see that totally different nowadays, and I see that I'm strong. It can affect anyone, and it does affect everybody. Sometimes you get dealt that hand and you have to cope with it. So today I feel that I'm strong with it, but I'm also very respectable of it, because I know that I have to look after myself.
Well, I think anybody watching this will say you're incredibly strong, Martin. I think just talking through that journey, that's taken some courage. And perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about, for people who haven't been there themselves. I mean, when things were, when you were low, what did it feel like? What was that like? How did you talk about it to people, or did you find it hard to talk about because it was something you'd never really felt before? Was it, how, in those dark days, what was that?
I think that for me, both, certainly the two stays in the Priory were different. For the first stay in the Priory was still about, I didn't want to have mental health problems, and I didn't think I had mental health problems. I just thought it was a blip in my life, even though I was in there for 7 weeks. The understanding of trying to, I think that for me, a lot of this would come from burying stuff. It wasn't until, I had 4 counsellors in my life, and the first 3 counsellors I told lies to, because all my life I'd listen to what someone said and tell them what I felt they wanted to hear. So I felt I could work the situation. So my first 3 counsellors was about working the situation. The 4th counsellor was a lady counsellor. Not that it makes a difference. The other 3 were men, but the old truth come out, and it was done in 5-year blocks. So she done a thing of 0 to 5, and I was thinking, what's this woman on? When I first started, 0 to 5 and 5 to 10, but a lot of issues come around 5 to 10 for me. I had a big loss in my life, something that I never understood, or I lost my granddad and I was 7. And I had a block where I can remember things I did at 5, but I couldn't remember things I did at 7. And I could never remember my granddad being alive, but I can remember my teachers who were alive at that time. And I can remember, but I can't, even to this day, I still cannot remember my granddad being alive, because I think I'd buried that that abandonment and everything with that. And when we started to really unravel it, she went, it started to feel like someone had took a big rucksack of rocks off my back when I started to talk about that. And I never ever thought that anything that was when I was 7 would have any effect on me when I was at the time 40, about 50 at the time, I think I was. So it's, I'd say the first thing for me is that I didn't want to understand it or take any notice of it when I first had it. But the second time, I just felt that now I had to get to know what it was all about. So I talked a lot more through the second one. The first one, I didn't want to talk to no one. I go back to the story when Dean came to see me at the Priory. I just didn't want him to see me how I've become and what I look like. But the best thing I can ever say is that it's so important. I mean, doing this tonight, people say, "Oh, why? This is good for me. This is good for me." I do a lot of these. I do a lot of live ones as well. And I say to people in all them, I talk about it because I want to, if someone out of that audience, when I talked previously, come up to me and say, I've got a problem, will you come for a coffee? I've never had so many coffees in all my life, but just to people to come to you, and it has touched so many people, and then I can understand the reality of it. So I think I respect it now and understand it, Paul, is the best thing I can say.
Yeah. Well, Dean, you two are obviously really great mates. You go back, I think you go back a bit, don't you?
We do.
Tell us a bit about that, but also tell us a bit about how, about what happened when you went. Martin's talked about his time in the Priory, and how did you feel about that, and what did you see, what did you find, and what did you do?
It was a really weird time. I mean, me and Martin, I joined Orient, I think it was a year after Martin, in '97, and became teammates, obviously best of mates, and roommates as well. As the younger one, I had to make a lot of them coffees, and so Martin gave me my first ever job in coaching. Brought me back to Orient as a youth team coach, and I eventually became the assistant manager with him, and had a really successful time and really enjoyable time. Martin spoke to me since he's had mental health problems, and said there were signs then. I never recognised them at all. I don't think I could recognise them. I'm a lot more aware of mental health now than I ever was because of Martin, which has been a massive help to me. But we were working 24/7 close to each other for 5 years as manager and assistant manager, and we were in and out of each other's lives, houses, families. We knew everything about each other. I didn't know that Martin had any mental health problems at all. And we as Martin said, we ended up leaving Leighton Orient, went our separate ways. Martin got the job at Cambridge, and he'll say, don't feel guilty. Feel guilty, because I actually was going with him, and I sometimes wonder whether he wouldn't have got them mental health problems if I was still working with Martin. But it was one of them things that happened. The chairman there at the time wouldn't allow me to go with there, so Martin took the job, and I ended up going to Walsall as head of youth. But obviously, very good friends. But then Martin explained the first time it was at Cambridge, and I got the call off his wife Caroline, and said Martin's not very well. He's got what we think is depression. I don't know if Martin remembers, and we met up with Nicola and Caroline over near your house, and we just sat in the garden talking about it. And you just said, I'm just having really dark thoughts. And I, at the time, didn't actually know what to do. I sat there and listened and was a little bit in shock. And then eventually, I think you ended up going into the Priory. The first time you went into the Priory, was that after Torquay or Cambridge?
Yeah, Torquay.
Yeah, Torquay. Yeah, that's right, because I was a manager then. And I then took over as manager at Walsall. I remember we played Oldham on the Saturday, and Paul Dickoff, it was his last game as manager of Oldham, and he was in the room after, and I'm talking about resigning and stuff like that. And then I got a call again from Caroline saying Martin's been admitted into the Priory. So, you know, I done as Martin would do for me, and all our mates, I jumped in the car the next morning and drove down to the Priory to go and see him. Wasn't actually sure if I could go and see him, but found out where he was and drove down there with my wife. And my wife sat in the sitting room, and I don't know if you remember, I walked past you. I didn't recognise him. He was sat in a little tea area, and I actually walked past him and said, "Oh, Martin Ling." And I said, "Oh, he's in the tea area." But it was weird. It was just like it aged 10 years in such a short amount of time. And then I just spoke to him, "What's up?" And we went to his room together. And he's right. I walked in and it was dark, and just my thought straight away, "What you got your curtains closed for? Let's get them open." And you kind of went back a little bit when I opened the curtains, and yeah, it was really weird because it wasn't the Martin I knew. You know, my mate, the manager who I've been working with for the last 5 years, it was really, it was vulnerable. That is the word I would say. At that time, he was vulnerable. And I was like, "Come on, let's go for the walk." Nicola's outside. Another our friends was outside, Boz. And he said, "I can't, I'm on suicide watch." And I'm like, wow. I said, "Well, okay, let me just go and ask the people." And as Martin said earlier, asked them. And they said, "Yeah, you can go for a walk." So I said, "Come on, Martin." Mark was a little bit ginger about going and doing it. Wasn't too sure, but went for a walk and just had a talk just up the road. But I made sure that one of us was always standing on the curbside because I was worried. Even, as soon as Martin had said that, I'm thinking, hopefully he's not having suicidal thoughts. So we was walking on the curbside. And we was just trying to discuss what his feelings were and, how we can help. And the only thing I could think of at the moment was I need to be a good friend to him because I think that's the only way I can help him. I'm not an expert on this, and he's in a place where there are experts. And I was only doing what, we've got quite a tight-knit group of friends, and we was all doing it. Spending time with Martin, trying to, help him come through it. And it was a difficult time for Martin and certainly his family to see him going through that. It's great to see him where he is now.
Yeah, no, that's such a great story, Dean. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of the work we've been doing with a lot of the clubs has been about how important it is for people to have their mates back, and to really support the guy you're going to football with, or in your case the friend and colleague that you're working with. And you absolutely just showed there what having your back is all about, actually, just going there and being there for them. And Martin, that must have really helped.
Yeah, it's just sent shivers down my spine, actually, because I've never really looked at it from Dean's side, because you don't, it's funny because I had someone who come to me the other day and his wife was suffering. And I said, to be honest with you, I said, I can talk, if I can talk to your wife, then I can give an input into what's going on or try to help what's going on. But for you, it'd be better to speak to Caroline, my wife, to hear what she went, like what Dean just said there, going from, and obviously Caroline's a lot closer to it than Dean was, but it's hard to see, people forget that. People forget, Caroline's been living with that for the last, I say 11 years. I've not had it for Touchwood for 4. I've not had it all for them 11 years, but she's been through three sections of mental health with me, and to look it from the other side, and yeah, you don't. And when Dean's speaking there, I'm forgetting that. I'm thinking, I'm trying to put the shoe on the other foot. I'm going there to go to see Dean in the Priory. What, you know, because something you don't know nothing about. But I think the thing that he said there that's the biggest thing for everybody. I think there's two things really. One is to if you can talk it out with someone, whether it's with a family member or a close friend, that will help. And as a friend is just to be there. There's no solution, you know, to pick up the phone and make people talk to you, to go and have a coffee, or just to turn up and say, because if you go and do it, it's like anything. It's, as I just said about my negative head in the mornings, like Dean might come, when Dean come to the Priory and suggested that walk, that was the last thing I wanted to do. But I know I felt better when I went for that walk and come back. I didn't see that fully at the time, but I certainly see it now. So I think it is about being there. It is about being there for people and making sure that both the person that's suffering, but also the people in and around him that suffer through it as well. It's funny because I've got a boy of 23 and a girl of 25 now. That makes me sound old, doesn't it? But they are. Sammy plays football for a living. He plays at Leighton Orient, and Charlotte. But Charlotte works with, she's a physio member in the hospital, and she talks very much openly about it with me and the times and the scenarios, where Sam is just like I was. He just dives away, doesn't want to talk about it. I can remember him always saying, I don't like coming to the Priory. I don't want to come to the Priory. It wasn't the fact he didn't want to come and see me, but it was the surroundings that I was in. And you forget that. But Charlotte talks about it, and Sam is not so open with it. But you know, you've got to let people develop and do it in their own way. But there's suffering around people. But I think to be there for people is a massive thing. And as I say, it did send shivers down my spine to listen to Dean say that, because I never really looked at it from his point of view. And I finish on this. I know I'm rattling on again, but the thing that I remember at Leighton Orient, I can never remember it when I was managing. I said to Dean, the only thing I can remember that I can feel where I've been touched by, we used to do a run in the mornings because the traffic was so bad in London. We used to get there early. We used to do about an hour's run every morning, near enough. And I can remember on a couple of them runs, I've been on the run, and I can't remember being on the run. That's the only thing I can put together now. Obviously, we probably lost on the Saturday and a million things going through me, but the only thing I can liaise with that felt like I was avoiding things and maybe a little taste of mental health. But there was something, you know, if someone said to me at that stage you had mental health problems, I'd have laughed them out of the place, to be totally honest.
Yeah. So for just to say for people who are watching, if you've got questions or comments that you want to make, please do make them, and we'll give a bit of time towards the end of this to take your questions and thoughts. And just to also say, you know, if you do want to find out more information or more help about mental health, do go to the Mind website. And I suppose what we're starting to talk about now is, you know, the things that help, that make a difference. You know, how do we get through this? And you were saying that the talking it through is really important, but also the exercise. And you're still doing the exercise, Martin. That is a big part of what keeps you sane. Is that right?
Yeah. I do 10,000 steps per day. I should do more. I remember I was playing a bit of tennis in the summer with Sam and a couple of other friends, and then I got a problem with my knee. When I see a specialist, he said I got arthritis, so that's another excuse not to do nothing. No, but I do get out of the training ground. I'm based at the training ground now, rather we're not at the stadium at all. Whereas before I was based at the training ground a couple of days. So I just go out, walk around, see what the first team are up to, see what the goalkeepers are up to, see what the youth team are up to. Dean would say that's very much what I did when I was a manager, I'm totally honest, because they used to do all the coaching. But yeah, just go and have a stroll around, and that for me is good. You know, gets me out of that office space. It's a lot harder to do in the winter, but it's important. For me, as I say, for me, it's just about, you know, again, that's me time. If I walk around the training ground for 45 minutes to an hour, that's giving me a bit of me time, you know, and I might talk to people on the way round, but it's just about being aware that things like that do definitely help.
And you know, you both of you, but Dean, you know, you're managing Aston Villa. There's a lot of pressure in these jobs. How do you keep yourself sane? How do you look after your mental health? And also, just for both of you, really, be interested to get a sense about how you think the conversations about mental health in football are changing, you know, in terms of players' mental health, and also, and also the team that you work with in terms of their mental health.
I think Martin actually suffering has helped me become totally more aware of my mental health. And, you know, unfortunately, he's had to suffer, but Martin's suffering has helped so many other people. Because, you know, we both lost our job, obviously, at Orient at the time. And I was very bitter at the time because, you know, it's not a nice thing to lose your job. And, you know, something I've only ever known is football, and it's the only time I've been out of work. But I knew that whatever job I would go into next, I was going to go and enjoy it to the full. And my drive has always been to try and prove people wrong. So that was my drive from that moment when we lost our jobs, was to go and prove people wrong. And you know, when I actually got offered to take the job at Walsall, a good friend of mine had unfortunately got sacked, Chris Hutchins, who took me there as his youth coach. I had to think twice about whether to take the job or not. You know, because I'd seen, you know, Martin and what he'd gone through, and I had to, you know, would I be able to handle it? Spoke to my wife about it, and I said, okay, I will take on it as caretaker, and give me a month, and we'll see where we are then. But and Martin will probably tell you this as well. The first game, there was an adrenaline rush of having control, and I really enjoyed it. You know, there was ups and downs within the game. We drew the game in the end, but I suppose everybody talks about this football management and the drug it is, and I'd become addicted within 90 minutes. You know, and ended up, and I've been a manager stroke head coach ever since. But what I've learned from Martin is the fact that I can't bring it home. And I do lots of talks for the LMA now, and everybody's amazed that I took, after the game, once across the step of the door, it's my home time. You know, I've got a family. My boy's over in the States now, but he was living at home, daughter. And I always say to every manager now, you need to get yourself a dog. Because Martin talks about waking up with negative thoughts in the morning. I don't have them negative thoughts, but waking up in the morning, taking the dog out, gives me my me time and gives me my headspace to just go and think about what I'm going to do for the day and how I'm going to do it. You know, and it works for me. I mean, I keep my family involved in everything that I'm going to talk about. So when I moved from Brentford to Aston Villa, the opportunity came about, and we actually had a family discussion. Got my boy on FaceTime because being from the area and being Aston Villa fans, we knew it would change our lives, and I wanted them to be comfortable with the decision I was making. You know, because if I felt that I had made it and not them, I'm sure I wouldn't have been too comfortable with it. But that's part of probably what gets me through day to day. And I love the job. I think the minute I don't love the job, you know, that's when you start stressing and having them thoughts. But I actually love the job. I'm never too high when we win and never too low when we lose. And I think, you know, I think that's a massive thing. Even though my players have a go at me, we beat Liverpool 7-2. Say, come and celebrate with us at least. But it helps me, you know, keep a perspective of things.
Can I ask Dean a question? Is that right, Paul? What's in place for, you know, at your level? Have you got sports psychologists or anything like that for the players, Dean?
Yeah, so there's a sports psychologist for the academy, and there's one for the first team, not just first team players, but staff as well. Yeah, who's in there full time. We employed one at Brentford as well. That was for me, it's an integral part of the role now. You know, players won't always, as you know, they don't want to talk to the manager, and sometimes they don't want to talk to the coaches as well, because that might get back to the manager and affect whether they're playing or not. So they need somebody who's totally, you know, unbiased, who's totally straight down the middle, and they can talk to.
Yeah.
And is that something you have at Orient as well, Martin? How do you talk to the players? And you've got your son as a player as well. How do you have those conversations with him?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we haven't got the money that not be moved to the Dean would have at Villa. We have got a procedure that there is somebody that we use outside of the football club. So if anyone see with Dean, I think if you've got someone there on a daily basis, will probably stop a lot of the problems we sort of deal on because of the finances of things. Is anything sort of red flags up through the physio, the sports scientists, then we will move it on. There's, there has been certain people since the 3.5 years I've been in there that have come and talked to me, and I've pushed them in the right direction or guided them into the right direction. We had a massive, when Justin Edinburgh passed away, dealing, I think that if I'm honest with you, my mental health experience guided me through that and was able to steer the ship through very difficult waters. You mean, what do you say? I become, obviously I was close friends with Justin's wife and children, and he was the sort of Paul. I was the one that was seeing them, most of the time, and it did. I think I had to rely on my mental health training, I suppose, and that's self-training, I suppose, but also for the players, to start with. I can remember going on the training pitch after about, I don't know, it must have been, I can't remember how long after Justin passed, but it was maybe, let's say, within 5 or 6 weeks. And I went out there and you could just feel a lull, and people were scared to laugh and share. And I just went over to them, and I don't really get involved that much within the training or anything like that. I've got managers and coaches to do that. But I went over there and I said, would he come on? I said, let me say something now. I said, would he want you, Justin, to be, because he was the life and soul of the party, would he want you to be like you are now? And that was like I took a rock off all their backs, because they just then freed up a little bit, just that, we had to deal with it. We had to accept it. You don't move on. You just learn to cope, I feel. We haven't got, as I say, going back to the question, we haven't got what Villa have in terms of something that they've got on. We have got a process, and because of my own illness and what I've gone through, there's the process is very much to the fore if needed.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it does really sounds like people are talking a lot, at least finding a place to talk, even if it's not. Sometimes it's going to be somebody you trust, and sometimes your boss, because that's who you guys are. You're the bosses for the players, aren't you? Effectively, they don't necessarily want to be able to talk to you, but you're able to find somewhere for those guys to be able to talk and have somebody to talk to. So that's the important thing, isn't it, for the players?
I think it's important that as the manager, your door is open for anybody, and that's why one of the big things that I make sure is that my behaviours are consistent every day, so the players can see that they can come and talk to me. I will treat all the players differently because they're different. Yeah. Not one player is the same, and so you have to treat them differently. But as long as your behaviours are consistent, I feel you're giving them the opportunity to talk to you if they need to, as well as any other people at the football club. Yeah.
Well, some of the other people in the football club are the fans. And Martin, we were just saying earlier, you're about to welcome 2,000 fans back to Orient, which will be, I imagine, be great for to have people back in the ground. But a lot of fans come to football because it's really important for their mental health as well. What advice would you give fans? Any fan who's out there who's watching this now, who might be a bit worried about their mental health? What kind of advice would you give them?
I think that for me, I'll go back to what I said earlier, is to talk. And I think that I do believe it's a lot easier to talk today than it was. I sort of go back to the start of my football career, which was 1982, and I'm thinking about you know, if it had been talked about in it. But, you know, over the 10, let's say the 11 years that I've been touched by it, and I think it's changed over that period. I really do think that people do talk. I think the more people normalise it, that, you know, and that's what I try to do. It's quite normal to have mental health problems, and you know, it's an illness, and you have to learn to cope with it. So I think the first thing is to, I think the isolation, you've got to keep away from. You really got to keep away from the isolation. And as I said earlier, I talked about burying stuff. You know, you just keep pushing away, and you don't deal with it. Eventually, that's going to come. That can come back. I don't say it will come back. Can come back to hurt you. So I feel that if you could talk and take the power out of any situation and feeling. Because I mean, I quite often, you know, one of the things I use now is I quite often write down what my thoughts are, because they ain't a thought anymore. As soon as it's on a bit of paper, it ain't a thought anymore. So it's on a bit of paper. But also, when I read what the thought is, most of the time it makes me laugh to think that that was my fault, and I've written that down. Now I've got evidence of what that fault is, and then you just say, well, where's that come from? But that was the fault at the time. So I think you take the power out of that, and I do use that. You know, a lot of the time, just to prove to myself that there is a little wire loose in my head, and I know it's what loose in my head. And if I've got to, you know, tighten it up by taking tablets or deal with myself, then I have to do that.
And Dean, have you got any advice for a fan who's worried about a friend? What would you say to them?
Support them. That's it. That's all you can do. I mean, you know, we don't know what other people's troubles are, but, you know, be supportive and be there to talk. And it's funny, Martin will smile at this, because, you know, we all still worry about Martin because of what he's suffered from. But I know if I try him and he doesn't answer, then I'll phone one of our other mates. We've got a group of mates, and I said, has he spoke to you lately? So then I'll give him a bit of a message on the phone and say, listen, I've tried the Queen, I've tried the Pope, I've spoke to both of them, I said, but you won't come back to me. And then it jigs him a little bit, and he phones back then.
Yeah,
go on, Martin. Go on.
Yeah, I was just say, just because he's famous nowadays, he thinks that he can just pick the phone up to me at any time, so I make him work through his conversation. But no, I'm not. He knows this, and everyone knows this. I'm not that great on. I've learned a lesson when I was a manager. I used to just take messages. It was people like Dean I do get back to, but if I don't, then he does leave that Queen and Pope one. I've had that. I've had it recently, but I've had it a few times.
No, you've been all right.
There's always going to be a bit of humour in this. I think, even though we've been talking about some really, you know, it's at some point it's been a really tough time for you. You know, actually, there's a bit of humour, and that's what often, you know, keeps people up and keeps people going. So thank you. We're going to open up for questions in a second. I just want to thank you very much, both of you guys, for just being so open about that relationship. You know, really appreciate it. I'm sure lots of people watching this will have appreciated. And also just want to give a quick mention to Mind and City Hackney and Waltham Forest, who are the local Mind to Orient, who have a great relationship locally, and you can support you can support them today by through donations through this YouTube chat. And if you do live in your local to Orient, then they're the local Mind to support you. And if you need to reach out for help and support, they're very much there for them, and so too are we nationally if you need help and support. And we're continuing our partnership with the EFL and with Orient. We're very much looking forward to being able to do more and get back into the grounds as much as all the fans are as well. So Luke, let's see what we've got in terms of questions. Over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we've had a mix of questions. Some stuff I imagine it's probably been covered a bit tonight in different ways, but it'd be nice to kind of go back over and answer them in some direct ways. I'll start off with someone who's kept it anonymous and said, even before lockdown, I was suffering badly with depression, anxiety and suicidal thoughts. I was always wondering where the next pound note was coming from and paying the bills, and lockdown had made it even worse. Has Mr. Ling or anyone else got any words on how to, any words of advice on how to overcome this? Yeah,
I think that, you know, the same as I keep repeating is that you've got to talk to somebody about that. You know, if you're feeling low and feeling dark, the best thing to do is to share it, you know. And you know, some of them old sayings of a problem shared is a problem halved, I believe is so true. It's so true. And you know, and the thing that I always, you know, first thing I always say to be aware is the isolation. Don't isolate yourself and stay in your own head. The longer you're in your own head, the worse it is. So you got to get yourself out of that and get out there and to not isolate. I know it's difficult. I've been there. Trust me, whenever you talk, I talked about that walk I took with Dean in the Priory and thinking, why am I doing it? But I felt better after. I didn't feel that, you know, I didn't know that when I first went out, but you know, certainly sitting there at the end of the night, I felt better. So yeah, it's not always what your head tells you. You've got to get out of that and get on with life.
And I think we'd suggest that talking to a trusted friend is the first thing to do for sure. But also don't forget that there's help and support from mental health charities, and also don't be shy to go to your doctor to ask for help. It's not, you know, it's not, as I think we've just heard from Martin, it's not, there's no shame in that. The stigma is beginning to recede, and you know, the NHS is there to support people. So, you know, please don't suffer in silence, because the professional help and support is there for people.
Yeah, I'll just say that, you know, for me, my first connection with mind, you know, I'd been through the Priory, you know, a lot of private stuff, but my first thing with mind was I was walking through Ware High Street and see the mind shop, and I thought, what's that all about? And I walked in. For some reason, I walked in that mind that day. I don't know why I walked in, and there was people like me in there, people that were suffering. Walked through the front door, and the connection's been there ever since. And I don't know that in any way, shape, or form what made me walk in through that door that day, but I did, and there was support. And there is mind. I'm sure Paul will tell you that, but there is plenty of them around.
We're a lot cheaper than Priory as well. We're free.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at, Paul.
Although donations do help, obviously. Luke, go on.
Thank you, guys. One for Dean. Curtis has asked, can you recognise in your players now if you think someone might be struggling, and how would you approach them if you had some concerns?
Sorry, I was on mute then. Yes, you can tell when players are having bad days, because you get to know them. The longer you're with them, the more you get to know, you know, they're human beings, so they have emotions, they have sensitivities, and you know, sometimes some of them might need just a little quiet word, and you can get a good feel then of if there is anything. And if you can't deal with it yourself, or one of your coaches can't deal with it, then you know, you can just tip off your sports psychologist, and you know, maybe you might need to have a little talk, you know, indiscreetly with them to see if they want to talk, because they might not want to as well. And that's the one thing I would always say. I would never force, you know, my sports psychologist to go and speak to anybody or a coach, but I think experience helps you, you know, to get the feel of you know how deep it is in terms of their feelings that day.
I remember saying one thing to Dean once about, we talked about management and being a top, you know, being a manager, and people talk about coaching, people talk about, you know, your systems of play, you can talk all you like, but the biggest thing that you need, and I still believe this to be the case today, is your man management. And that's what Dean's talking about, is to know your players, and also being open to them, and know that they can come to you and trust you. I feel that you get better results. And you know, we all want to find the new system that no one else has ever found, but for me, the man management side of being a football manager is still the biggest thing that you need, and I think all the top ones have got that.
Yeah, cheers, guys. One from Bethany, who said, how can we as a society do more to open up mental health discussions at work, in business and in business? Paul, I think if we start with you, but I think also that'd be quite an interesting one to talk about football in general and how we could maybe drive mental health forward in that area.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with businesses, public, private, voluntary sector organisations across the board. And actually, in a funny kind of way, some of the things we've just been talking about are part of the story, because we know that the businesses that get this right, they do two or three things. One thing is that the people in charge, the leaders, are open about their own either their own experiences if they've had them, or they're open about, or they encourage other people to be open about their experiences. And just as Martin and Dean have been talking about today. Secondly, we know that organisations can kind of champion, if there are people inside organisations who can become mental health champions, and that's something we often help people with. And also organisations can sign up to the Mental Health at Work pledge, which allows, or available on a Mental Health at Work website, which allows organisations to say, we care about mental health and we want to do something about it. Because we know that there's still, in some organisations, there's still that stigma and people find it really difficult to talk about it, but giving people the permission to talk about it can make a really big difference. And things like the Mental Health at Work commitment, Mental Health at Work pledge allows people to do that. And so do go and have a look at that, and encourage your employer to sign up for it. Well over 500 employers have already done it. And we at Mind also now run a set of awards for organisations who are doing really great work in their workplaces to encourage people to do that. And actually, that's one of the reasons why we started this partnership with the EFL, because I think we all wanted everybody recognised that maybe there was something we could all do to work together to support clubs as employers.
Absolutely. Martin and Dean, I imagine football's probably come a fair distance maybe from your playing days in regards to mental health, but would you say there's still kind of areas to go and still, things we can take forward?
I'll let Dean go first.
Yeah. I think Martin spoke earlier about, when he first started playing, if he'd had a problem then, it was very difficult to talk about, because there was a generation thing about mental health as well. And I think now players have more of a voice than they've ever had with social media and the platforms that they can go and have their feelings known. And I think they're starting to take a lot more responsibility for that now. And you see individuals within each club's pushing to talk about different things in society now. Mental health being a prevalent one, certainly around in and around football. The work that Mind has done in the EFL has been tremendous. But I think the voice that these players have now, they will push, and whether it's their PFA, their own union, or their own football club, they will push to make sure that the word is out there now. Which is really commendable. Seeing it from young lads.
Yeah, I'm the same as Dean. I think that it's a lot more. It's totally different to when I started playing, and Dean a little bit after me. But I think for people now, you can. I always say if you put enough doors there that people can knock on, people will eventually knock on it. What I'm saying by that, if you put enough processes in place, then someone will fetch the problem up or talk about. As I say, a lot of times with me, and it has been previously at the football club. It's like, oh, can we have a chat, or can we have a coffee? And you actually start, and then sometimes it might not be them, it might be someone that they're living with or whatever, but being able to talk about it. Now, you hear a lot of, as Dean said, a lot of players or ex-players that talking about it. I mean, I've done quite a bit of my work over the last 2 years, really, is that I've been into a couple of banks up in Canary Wharf, and I've been over to Kent and done and they have like a mental health workshop, and I'll go and speak in there. So they're having big companies nowadays are spotting it, trying to. I think when I go, someone like myself going in is to normalise it. Again, I'm up there talking, and then people say, "Well, he don't look like he's got mental health," and that's the whole point of it. Is that I haven't at that stage, but I have previously. So I think there's an awful lot of good going on, and I think a lot of good is going in football. It can always get better. I think it can always get better, but I think that you definitely aware of it. And what Dino said, I think people have got a voice now, and they, you know, when we played, it was sort of, you know, get on with it, and whatever you could do, you've got to be able to cope.
I think the bigger the voice as well, the more the message gets out to everyone. I remember being at the MA Awards, and Martin went up and spoke about it in front of all the other managers, and the effect it had in that room that night. You know, couldn't make me more proud of how Martin spoke about it, but it opened it up then. You know, and it needs, when high profile people have suffered from mental health, then, you know, when they come out and speak, it makes such a bigger message for everybody out there.
Absolutely. Another question in, probably our final question of the night, is from Curtis again. He's asked, what signs are there that you might be struggling? Is it solely bad thoughts, or could there be other signs?
Do you want to go first, Paul? Or?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think there's normally a few things that you heard from Martin about the thoughts. I think sometimes you might find that the things that you usually find really easy to do become really difficult. You know, we hear people about, you know, they're looking at a message on their phone, and usually they just go, right, I can answer it, and people just stare at their phone. It's not feel as though they can't answer it. Sometimes you may be having problems sleeping. You may be having problems, you know, your diet may be off. You may feel quite listless, like you don't really want to go out and do any physical activity. You just feel very, very kind of low. And all those are, you know, they're the things that kind of quite a lot of us might have, you know, from time to time, and that's all perfectly fine. But it's when those feelings become something that is happening to you kind of every day, that you need to start thinking about what's happening to you, and whether you might just need to go and talk to somebody and seek some help. I don't know, Martin, was that what you?
Yeah, I think, if I'm honest, Paul, all of the above, really, what you said there was very much, yeah, for me at the start. I think one of the things when I really knew was my sense of humour had gone completely. You know, I could be in a situation where, you know, there's a group of people talking, and I always felt that was a bit of a barometer for me, that you know, I couldn't laugh at anything, even though, you know, what was being said was probably funny. But yeah, for me, it was very much that you feel listless, you feel, yeah. But that little bit of where the sense of humour and being within a normal conversation and finding that you're taking part in that conversation instead of standing there and just looking into the abyss, I think that's very much part of it as well.
Cheers, guys. I think that would be it on the questions, Paul. If you wanted to maybe wrap up.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, thanks to everyone for the questions. That's really helpful. And please do, you know, if you do need access any help and support, do contact us at Mind online, or our information services on our website as well. Wherever you are, you know, please don't suffer in silence. Do get in touch. As I think we've heard tonight really powerfully from Dean, mates play a really important role. And, you know, Dean, thank you very much for joining us tonight and sharing your experience as a mate. I'm sure lots of people will be sitting there thinking, what can I do to help somebody who I'm a bit worried about because of what you said today? I really, really appreciate it. But Martin,
yeah, no worries.
You know, thank you. Yeah, cheers, Dean. And Martin, thank you. I mean, you know, you're, as you've heard from from Dean and others, you know, people so appreciate what you do, your openness and honesty about your own experiences, and I know you actually get some strength out of that, and we really feel that. But a lot of people don't find that easy, but a lot of people will have got a lot of strength from what they've heard from you tonight. And, you know, every time you talk about it, I know you make a difference to people's lives. And from our point of view at Mind, in our partnership with the EFL and our partnership with Orient, you know, we're really honoured to have to call you part of our mental health family. And thank you so much for what you've done this evening. It's really appreciated. And thanks also to all the folk at Orient for putting this on tonight. You know, I really, really appreciate it, and I hope people have found that really helpful and interesting, and hope everybody has a good evening. And we're looking forward to having fans back in the ground and continuing successful season. So cheers. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.